Did you know Golden Age Hollywood made more daring films about older women and younger men than modern studios produce today? While contemporary filmmakers panic about sensitivity, directors in the 1940s through 1960s boldly explored these complex relationships with sophistication and emotional depth. These weren't exploitative, they were intelligent, honest, and devastatingly human. From Broadway power struggles to Venetian romance, from spiritual awakening to psychological danger, these 10 films questioned everything about power, desire, and authentic connection. So stick around as we count down the Golden Age classics that shattered convention and created cinema's most unforgettable stories. Let's begin. All About Eve, 1950. Here's where brilliance collides directly with obsession in ways that cinema rarely achieves. All About Eve remains one of cinema's most ruthlessly quotable masterpieces, a film that detonated into theaters like a perfectly calibrated psychological bomb designed to explode inside viewers' consciousness. Directed by the genius Joseph L. Mankiewicz, this story features Margot Channing, a legendary Broadway actress navigating the terrifying precipice of fading fame and relevance, while a starry-eyed younger woman named Eve Harrington methodically infiltrates her world with suspicious enthusiasm and calculated charm and ambition. But this isn't a simple romance story. It's psychological warfare wrapped in designer clothing and contempt, a sophisticated examination of predators and prey where nobody quite fits those categories neatly or satisfactorily. Bette Davis, playing Margot at 42 years old, delivers perhaps her most iconic performance, spitting dialogue like, "Fasten your seatbelts, it's going to be a bumpy night," a line so perfectly constructed it's been borrowed, referenced, and quoted for 7 continuous decades and likely never will be forgotten. The film earned 14 Oscar nominations, a staggering achievement reflecting that the industry recognized something genuinely exceptional and revolutionary was happening on screen that would influence cinema for generations. What's fascinating about this film from a relationship perspective is how it explores power dynamics with complete sophistication and absolute refusal to simplify or sentimentalize either character's position. Margot holds all the theatrical influence, all the professional authority, all the valuable connections and knowledge and mentorship that takes decades to accumulate. Eve possesses youth, blind ambition, and a disturbing willingness to destroy anyone blocking her path to success and recognition and immortality. Their relationship crackles with tension, jealousy, grudging admiration, and undeniable understanding of each other's hunger for recognition and power and immortality through art. The younger woman views the older as an obstacle to be overcome and discarded. The older woman views the younger as a threat and, simultaneously, as a mirror reflecting her own ambitions when she was starting out. Critics called it wickedly entertaining, a soap opera elevated to profound art, demonstrating cinema's potential for sophisticated storytelling. The film cost just over $1 million in 1950 currency, absolutely enormous for that era, and earned 6 times that amount in initial theatrical distribution, proving audiences craved complex female characters and morally gray storylines refusing easy judgment, or moral clarity, or comfortable resolutions. Davis herself won the Best Actress award, cementing her legacy as Hollywood's most formidable dramatic force, a woman refusing to disappear gracefully or accept diminished roles assigned to aging actresses. The genius of Mankiewicz's script lies in never making this relationship straightforward, or emotionally comfortable for either character or audience members watching. Eve isn't simply evil or malicious or undeserving of success or attention. Margot isn't simply right or innocent or deserving of her position or power. They're two sides of the same ambitious coin, separated only by age and the erosion of power that inexorable time brings to everyone who lives long enough to experience it. Number 9. Summertime 1955. Moving from the psychological warfare of All About Eve to something completely different in tone and emotional approach, we encounter one of cinema's most gorgeously melancholic love stories. David Lean directed this absolutely enchanting tragedy that became one of cinema's most beautifully photographed explorations of fleeting romance and genuine human connection across generations and cultural boundaries and expectations. The film stars Katharine Hepburn as Jane Hudson, an unmarried American secretary in her mid-40s who travels to Venice seeking meaning and adventure and the genuine possibility that life might still contain unexpected magic and transformation and joy. The romantic Italian city, she meets Renato, played by Rossano Brazzi, a charming Italian antique dealer, several years her junior with warmth and understanding and sophistication. What unfolds is a love story, feeling almost dreamlike and ethereal, set against Venetian canals and Renaissance architecture that mirror their connection's emotional complexity and fragility and beauty. Hepburn delivers a remarkably vulnerable performance, genuinely rare for her at that career point when she'd already established herself as untouchable and fierce and independent and unwilling to compromise. She allows audiences to see her character's loneliness, desperate hope for connection, fear of wasting remain in time, and ultimately her courage in accepting love, knowing it absolutely must end because of circumstances beyond anyone's control. The film was shot on location in Venice, making it one of the first major Hollywood productions embracing Italian neorealism's aesthetic while maintaining classical Hollywood storytelling traditions and emotional appeal. Lean's direction is absolutely pristine, almost painterly in its visual composition and meaning. Every frame could be mounted as a photograph, worthy of gallery exhibition and artistic consideration. The famous scene where Jane slips into the canal while following Renato became iconic for its spontaneity and genuine emotion, perfectly capturing what happens when you lose yourself completely in another person's presence and moment. The cinematography in stunning Technicolor makes Venice feel like a character in the story, a place that contains and reflects human emotion and desire and longing. Number 8. The Razor's Edge. 1946. Let's shift our focus now to a relationship built not on passion or attraction, but on spiritual understanding and philosophical connection and intellectual transformation. Directed by Edmund Goulding, The Razor's Edge presents a completely different kind of relationship entirely from typical Hollywood romance or sexual attraction or conventional storytelling about love. Based on Somerset Maugham's brilliant and philosophical novel exploring existential crisis and spiritual searching, the film explores the intellectual and spiritual connection between Isabel Murray, a sophisticated older woman of considerable means and education, and Larry Darrell, a young man searching desperately for meaning after returning traumatized from World War II and its horrors. Tyrone Power plays Larry with brooding intensity and vulnerability that captivates everyone around him, including Isabel, played by Gene Tierney, with warmth and genuine understanding of his spiritual crisis and existential questioning. What's remarkable about this film is how it prioritizes emotional and intellectual compatibility completely over physicality or conventional romantic gestures and displays of passion. Isabel understands Larry's spiritual crisis and existential searching in ways his own generation cannot comprehend or address or help with practically. She becomes his confidant, his anchor, his spiritual guide and mentor and teacher, while he awakens something in her that wealth and social position could never provide or purchase with money. The film cost $3 million, absolutely enormous for 1946, reflecting how seriously Hollywood took this literary property and the themes involved in its adaptation. It earned enough to cover costs and modest profit, but wasn't a massive box office success, suggesting audiences found the philosophical elements challenging and demanding and slow. Howard took this role specifically to prove his dramatic range beyond typical leading man fare and conventional roles that defined his career. His performance demonstrates that masculinity isn't diminished by being mentored by an older woman or learning from her wisdom and experience and guidance. Gene Tierney brings sophistication and warmth to Isabel, creating a character who loves wisely rather than desperately, who understands sacrifice rather than possessiveness and control and domination. The film's most powerful moment comes when Isabel recognizes that Larry's spiritual journey might take him away from her permanently, and she must choose love that releases rather than consumes or imprisons him. Goulding had worked extensively with complex female characters and understood how to film subtle emotions passing between people in silence and meaningful looks and gestures. Number 7. The Letter, 1940. Now we shift dramatically in tone from spiritual searching to something far darker and more dangerous. William Wyler's adaptation of W. Somerset Maugham's play is pure melodrama, elevated to absolute masterwork status and cinematic brilliance and moral complexity. This film presents an entirely different exploration of age gap relationships, one where the older woman uses her power not for guidance or transformation, but for her own desires and survival and protection. Bette Davis again takes center stage as Leslie Crosby, a woman appearing to be in her mid-40s who commits shocking violence at the opening and then navigates devastating consequences while maintaining her respectability facade and social standing in colonial society. The man she kills is a younger man with whom she shares complex and passionate history, filled with desire and transgression and forbidden feeling. The film unfolds as a psychological thriller before that genre even existed, or had a proper vocabulary or conventions established by studios. Davis gives a performance of extraordinary control, showing us a woman simultaneously calculating and emotionally vulnerable, powerful in her social position yet utterly trapped by circumstances and her own dangerous desires and passions. The black and white cinematography by Tony Gaudio is absolutely stunning and moody, creating shadows reflecting narrative moral ambiguity at every turn and moment. The famous letter that gives the film its title becomes the MacGuffin driving the entire plot. But it's really about power and desire and the ways women navigate seemingly impossible situations and dilemmas. The film was controversial upon release, dealing with passion and deception without condemning its protagonist or offering easy moral judgment or punishment. Critics divided between those finding it scandalous and morally wrong, and those recognizing brilliant cinema and sophisticated storytelling. Box office performance was remarkably strong, proving audiences accepted complex, morally questionable women as leading characters worthy of attention. Wyler's direction is absolutely impeccable, using camera to reveal character and emotion rather than relying on dialogue, exposition, and explanation. The supporting cast, including Herbert Marshall as Leslie's husband, creates a suffocating world of social pressure and hidden desire and secrets and repression. What's particularly interesting is how the film suggests that women's desires don't diminish with age or supposed respectability or social position or marriage. Leslie's passion is dangerous precisely because it's authentic and powerful and uncontrollable and refuses to be suppressed. Number 6. Now. Voyager 1942. From the darkness of Leslie Crosby's destructive passion, we move into something far more redemptive and life-affirming. A story about transformation and self-discovery through unexpected connection. Irving Rapper directed this swooning melodrama that became one of the most beloved and watched films of the 1940s, hinged entirely on a transformative relationship between a mature woman and a younger man, teaching her to embrace life completely and authentically, and without apology. Bette Davis plays Charlotte Vale, a repressed Boston spinster controlled by her domineering mother, transformed through intensive therapy and courageous self-discovery into a confident and radiant woman, alive with possibility and joy and newfound freedom. Paul Henreid plays Jerry Durrance, a charming man traveling through Rio de Janeiro who recognizes something awakening in Charlotte during their meetings and encounters. Their romance develops on an ocean voyage, built entirely on emotional connection and mutual recognition that sometimes love exists to change us rather than complete us permanently or forever. The film's famous moment where Jerry lights 2 cigarettes and places them simultaneously in both their mouths became iconic, suggesting intimacy and equality despite age differences and social standing. Davis was 43 when filming, while Henreid was 36, but the film scripts her as significantly older, positioning her as the one being awakened rather than pursuing or controlling. This reversal of typical power dynamics was remarkably progressive for its era and conservative society and expectations. The film earned nearly $7 million against a $2 million budget, making it one of Warner Brothers' most successful films that year and a commercial triumph. Critics praised Davis's ability to play both dowdy, repressed Charlotte and the glamorous, confident woman she becomes through love and self-respect and transformation and healing. The transformation wasn't superficial or cosmetic or merely physical appearance. It was spiritual and profound and fundamental to her character and identity. Jerry serves as catalyst for Charlotte's self-actualization and awakening, and the film suggests that sometimes the most mature love story is one where 2 people recognize they cannot be together permanently, but celebrate how they've changed each other forever and irrevocably. The final scenes, playing out against knowledge, their romance must remain forever in memory. Present emotional maturity, genuinely unusual for 1942 and Hollywood conventions and expectations of happy endings. Director Rapper understood that melodrama could contain real insight into human nature and behavior and psychology and emotional truth. Number 5. Gigi, 1959, Vincente Minnelli's masterpiece, which won 9 Academy Awards including Best Picture, tells the story of a young Parisian girl groomed to become a mistress, and her complicated relationship with Gaston, a wealthy older man played by Louis Jourdan with charm and vulnerability and desperation. Wait, you're thinking this sounds backwards from our theme and expectations. You're absolutely right about that observation. But what makes Gigi revolutionary is how it reframes the entire dynamic through female agency and absolute self-determination and choice and power. Leslie Caron plays Gigi with charm and intelligence, and though her character is technically younger in the film's narrative, the relationship explores how young women navigate power, desire, and expectations placed upon them by society and tradition and family obligation. The film's musical numbers are genuinely transcendent, and the famous song I Remember It Well showcases how memory, age, and shared history create true intimacy between people across time. Gaston initially views Gigi as a possible mistress until realizing he's fallen genuinely in love with her, leading him to propose marriage, granting her autonomy and choice rather than subjugation or exploitation. The film cost $3.9 million, enormous for 1959, and earned over $9 million, becoming one of the decade's most commercially successful films. Minnelli's direction is absolutely lavish and romantic, filming Paris like a character in the story itself, with every location meaningful and symbolic and beautiful. Cinematography captures the Belle Époque aesthetic with such beauty that audiences felt genuinely transported to another era. Critics called it a masterpiece of musical cinema, and the film's success proved audiences wanted unconventional relationship, dynamic stories, and narratives. The genius of the film is its honesty about female desire and male vulnerability and emotional capacity. Gaston isn't predatory or manipulative. He's shown as a lonely, wealthy man, transforming through connection with Gigi and discovering what really matters beyond money. Number 4. The Garden of Finzi Contini, 1970. Vittorio De Sica's final masterpiece haunts us with exploration of class, forbidden love, and gathering darkness of fascist Italy, slowly strangling romance and freedom and human dignity and possibility. The film centers on a young man from lower-class background and his fascination with a woman from the aristocratic Finzi Contini family, with their enclosed world, and protection and privilege. As their relationship develops within the sequestered estate garden, a magical place seemingly removed from history and violence, the outside world grows increasingly hostile to their romance and their very existence and safety. The woman, though in certain versions technically older, exists in a completely different social sphere, and their age difference becomes almost irrelevant beside the vast chasm of class and circumstance separating them permanently. De Sica films this with heartbreaking beauty, using the lush garden as metaphor for temporary paradise doomed to destruction by forces beyond anyone's control or resistance. The film cost approximately $1.2 million and had limited release, yet became one of the most respected and studied films of the 1970s and decades after. Critics recognized it as De Sica's attempt to recapture neorealist poetry of his earlier works, while engaging with contemporary anxieties about social division and personal freedom and human fragility. Harrison Ford plays a Philadelphia detective assigned to protect Rachel, an Amish widow, and her young son, who've witnessed a murder threatening their community's peace and safety and tradition. Rachel is portrayed as mature, self-possessed, and intelligent, played with quiet strength by Kelly McGillis, with depth and vulnerability and complexity. The detective must hide in Amish country, and slowly, genuine connection develops between him and Rachel through shared labor and mutual respect and understanding of each other's values. The film is technically a thriller with action sequences, but its emotional center lies in recognition between two people from completely different worlds who cannot be together because their worlds are fundamentally incompatible and contradictory. Ford was 43 when filming. McGillis was 26. But the gap matters less than the cultural chasm separating them permanently and absolutely. The film cost $5.5 million and earned over $14 million, proving audiences responded to its blend of action and genuine emotional complexity and mature storytelling. Weir's direction is absolutely exceptional, using contrast between violent Philadelphia world and pastoral Amish community to amplify emotional stakes and meaning. Critics praise the film's maturity, its refusal to manufacture happy endings that would betray character integrity and honesty. Number 2. Brief Encounter. 1945, David Lean's absolutely devastating masterpiece about ordinary life, interrupted by extraordinary feeling that transforms everything forever and irrevocably. Celia Johnson plays Laura Jesson, a respectable married woman in her 40s who encounters Alec Harvey, a younger doctor, at a railway station cafe where they meet by accident and chance. Their meetings become routine, accidental, and increasingly charged with emotional intensity and longing and recognition of something profound and transformative. The film unfolds in flashback as Laura confesses to her husband, though he never directly hears her words or understands what almost happened between them or how close she came. What makes this film immortal is recognition that the most significant love affairs might never be consummated and might never be known to anyone except the participants and those who suspect something. Lean films this with extraordinary restraint and sophistication and emotional intelligence about human feelings. A hand touch becomes devastatingly intimate and meaningful and charged with significance. An almost kiss carries more emotional weight than explicit physicality could convey or express or demonstrate. Cinematography by Robert Krasker captures both mundane reality of 1940s England and heightened emotional world of two people falling in love, despite knowing they cannot be together permanently. Famous final scene, where Laura and Alec part forever, remains one of cinema's most powerful moments of recognition and loss and sacrifice. Celia Johnson gives a performance of remarkable vulnerability, showing us a woman conscious of her feelings' wrongness, fighting against them, yet unable to resist them completely. Alec, played by Trevor Howard, is presented as genuinely kind and conflicted, not as a predator or seducer, but as another person trapped by circumstance and authentic feeling and desire. Number 1. The Night of the Hunter. 1955. Charles Laughton's singular masterpiece is a fever dream of American Gothic, unlike anything else ever made in mainstream cinema and Hollywood production. Laughton, famous for playing monsters, directed this one and only film, remaining unforgettable and influential decades later, and continuing to be studied. Robert Mitchum plays Harry Powell, a predatory man who pursues a widow and her children for hidden money and violence and control through manipulation. But here's what's remarkable and important to our theme. Shelley Winters plays Willa Harper, the widow, a lonely woman starved for affection who becomes dangerously vulnerable to Harry's manipulation precisely because she's been alone so long and craves genuine connection desperately. The film explores how a woman's desire for connection can be weaponized against her, a subject cinema rarely addressed with such honesty and unflinching examination. Mitchum is genuinely terrifying, but what's equally terrifying is watching Willa's hopeful descent into disaster and tragedy and loss. Laughton films this like a storybook nightmare, using theatrical lighting and symbolism feeling more akin to German expressionism than American cinema and conventions. The film cost $800,000, modest for 1955, and initially failed at the box office, earning less than $1 million. It was considered a commercial and critical failure upon release. However, critics reconsidered it over decades, and it's now recognized as a masterpiece and one of cinema's greatest films ever made in any era. What's particularly relevant to our exploration is how the film suggests that older women's desire for connection can be manipulated by predatory younger men. This inverts the power dynamic we've been celebrating in earlier films and serves as important counterpoint. Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. We read every comment and respond to serious ones. And here's the real question we want sparking genuine debate in your minds. If these Golden Age filmmakers could portray such nuanced explorations of age and relationship dynamics 70 or 80 years ago with such sophistication and restraint, why does modern cinema seem so terrified of telling these stories? Why has Hollywood become more conservative about age gap relationships when society supposedly progresses? Subscribe to Golden Movies and turn on notifications so you never miss when we explore cinema that challenges, surprises, and genuinely moves us. Tell us in the comments which film shocked you the most or made you rethink what cinema can accomplish.